Hey guys, how you doing? Welcome back to Signs and Wonders. I don't know why this camera is so choppy, but hopefully you can hear me better. I would like to say thank you so much. This video is about the Nephilim. It is a request from a subscriber. Thank you guys for watching. Thank you guys for helping. You guys are going to help me pay my rent this month, and I am so grateful. I love you guys so much. If you guys do like the channel and would like to help keep it alive, you can check out the links in the description below. Thanks a lot and enjoy the video, guys. The ancient Hebrews referred to the angels as Ben Elohim, meaning the sons of God. The Bible reveals to us that these angels were present during the creation of the heavens and the earth. Although spiritual beings, they can take on the form of a man. Like Jesus, when angels take on the form of flesh, they become subject to the flaws and temptations of the flesh. God sent 200 angels to earth. They decided upon Mount Hermon to teach man righteousness, but fell into sin like the original fallen ones who were cast out of heaven. These angels, like all angels, were distinct by creation, and so it was that they taught various arts to man. Samzea, who is their leader, said unto them, I fear you will not agree to this deed, and I alone shall not pay the penalty of a great sin. And they all answered him and said, Let us all swear an oath, and all bind ourselves by mutual implications, not to abandon this plan, but to do this thing. Then swear they all together and bound themselves by mutual implications upon it, and these are the names of their leaders. Archaeological, the angel of the earth, taught the signs of nature. Kokobil, the angel of the stars, taught astrology, and Tamil taught the killing of the innocent in the womb. Azazel, another chief fallen angel who is kin to Satan, taught man the art of warfare and making of swords, knives, shields, and coats of mail, and women the art of deception by ornamenting their body, dyeing their hair, and painting their face and eyebrows. He also revealed to the people the secrets of witchcraft, and the corrupted their manners, leading them into wickedness and impurity, until all last he was found at the Lord's command hand and foot for the archangel Raphael, and chained to the rough and jagged rocks of where he is to abide in utter darkness until the great day of judgment. In Genesis chapter 6, verse 1-6, we read, Now it came about, when man began to multiply on the face of the land, and daughters were born to them, that the sons of God, or the Ben Elohim, saw that the daughters of men were beautiful, and they took wives for themselves, whomever they chose. Then the Lord said, My spirit shall not strive with man forever, because he is also flesh. Nevertheless, his days shall be 120 years. The Nephilim were on the earth in those days, and also afterward, when the sons of God, the Ben Elohim, came into the daughters of men, and they bore children to them. Those were the mighty men who were of old, men of renown. Then the Lord saw the wickedness of man was great on the earth, and that every intent of the thoughts of his heart were only evil continually. The Nephilim, the product of the sons of God, mingling with the daughters of Adam, the great biblical giants, the fallen ones, the Raphaim, the dead ones. These descriptions all are applied to one group of characters found within the Hebrew Bible. So who are the Nephilim? From where do the heroes of old, the men of renown, come? This is just my opinion here on these alien greys, guys, but I think all these alien greys may be Nephilim, and they're deceiving people into thinking they're gods from another world when they are really just demons from another dimension, i.e. hell. There is some credibility to my theory, though, so if you guys want to look up aliens are demons or alien demon deception, you'll find a lot of evidence for what I'm talking about, and it all kind of ties back to my last video with CERN. These so-called gray aliens are actually fallen angels from another dimension, hell. Not another planet. They're not intergalactical, they're interdimensional. And for whatever reason, I'm assuming a promise of knowledge, CERN is trying to open a doorway to their dimension, hell. In Genesis chapter 6, we read, the Nephilim, which means fallen ones, when translated into English, were the product of copulation between the divine beings, sons of God, and the human women, daughters of Adam. The Nephilim are known as great warriors and biblical giants in Ezekiel 32:27 and Numbers 13:33. It's my belief, and the belief of many theologians, that this interbreeding led to the wickedness on earth that caused God to create the flood. Around 2013, archaeologists started finding the remains of giant skeletons all over the world. These secular, non-believing scientists tried to pawn them off as fake or hoax, and maybe a couple of these were photoshopped, but there has been so many discoveries made, guys, from all around the world, and some by very credible doctors in the field, archaeologists and stuff. After heavy storms in Ecuador, a large female skull was found in the Aloha province. Scientists determined the skull was approximately 600 years old. The discovery of the skull inspired a search for the rest of the skeleton, the parts of which were found and assembled a few weeks later. The skeleton stood 7 foot 4 inches tall, which was astounding considering the average height of a woman in those days was about 5'5". Further research then led to the discovery of 5 more giant skeletons in the same area. All of the skeletons were between 7 to 8 feet tall and were buried in deep, elaborate graves. They were found at 2 separate sites, leading scientists to conclude they were probably from 2 different tribes. And in 1871, an archaeologist dig at a Native American burial ground unearthed 200 giant skeletons, some measuring up to 9 feet tall. It was also estimated that the remains could have been up to 9,000 years old. I don't know how accurate that is, but... Now, at the time of the discovery, these remains were widely reported in the media, but today the remains have coincidentally disappeared. The Dover Mound in the state of Kentucky is a large Native American burial ground, within which was found the 7-foot-tall skeleton of an Adenia man. What was more interesting than the height was his abnormally elongated head and disproportionately large torso in relation to his legs. And we also have giant footprints, guys. One of the most famous giant footprints in the world was found outside Paluzi, South Africa. It was found 100 years ago by a hunter, and locals named it the Footprint of God. The footprint is 1.2 meters long. Now, guys, if the rest of the body was sized in proportion to the foot, this giant that made it would stand between 24 and 27 feet tall. Also, the footprint is in granite, which is one of the hardest rocks on Earth, and there are no chisel marks around it, meaning that whatever made this footprint must have stepped in the rock while it was still molten. Now, I'm sure a lot of you guys have probably heard or seen all of these stories about the giant skeletons being found before, but did you guys know that there's actually rumors, and very credible ones, that there's still giants existing nowadays? Have you guys ever heard of the giant of Kandahar? Well, it was a story that came out a couple years ago from a soldier. The soldier claimed while on a tour in Kandahar, Afghanistan, him and his squadron of soldiers encountered a gigantic, red-haired, red-bearded human, but a giant. They actually got in a firefight with this giant, and it ended up killing 2 of their boys. They finally ended up taking this thing down, but I believe this was a Nephilim. Here's a clip from a video that I made a few months ago that will
It's one of the
more.
most bizarre stories to come out of America's longest war. An allegation United States Special Forces engaged and killed a giant in Afghanistan. But it's being reported by multiple sources. Several eyewitnesses claim the battle not only took the life of an American soldier, but that the government flew the huge corpse of the attacker back to the United States. Reporter and researcher L.A. Marzulli, who some of you may have heard of, explored the spectacular charge. These creatures were the offspring of the sons of God, the angels and the daughters of men. In Genesis chapter 6 and Numbers chapter 13 verses 33, the Bible speaks of giants populating the earth. When ordinary people saw them, they said, "We were in our own sight as grasshoppers, and so we were in their sight." A strange passage, but one Marzulli contends is backed by evidence. What's more, these giants didn't just exist in biblical times, but live on through the present day. This soldier testified there were rumors at his base in Afghanistan about the engagement with what became known as the Giant of Kandahar. We started hearing a rumor about a unit that killed what they were calling a really tall person, he told Marzulli. At first, I didn't think anything of it. I come to find out that the person they killed was actually 3 times the size of a man, had extra digits on their hands and on their feet, and he had red hair, says the soldier. He goes on to say, a special unit had come and wanted this target. We'd heard they'd killed this thing inside a cave or the mouth of a cave. Another operator who spoke to Marzulli said those in power have a vested interest in keeping the story covered up. If it points to the Bible's narrative being accurate, they don't want it, he said. If it goes against Darwinian evolution, it's not to be spoken of. In the summer of 2016, several personalities and websites began claiming that an American Special Forces soldier serving in Kandahar, Afghanistan, was killed in 2002 by an 1,100-pound, blade-wielding, 12 to 15-foot tall giant from Old Testament times, before the giant himself was taken down by the military. A Department of Defense spokesman stated they have no record of such an incident. We do not have any record or information about a Special Forces member killed by a giant in Kandahar. Marzulli makes the case that the giant was a Nephilim, however you want to pronounce it, which were described in the book of Genesis as offspring of gods and human women who inhabited Canaan at the time of the Israelite conquest. But when it comes down to details, he's vague, saying he interviewed the unnamed man at an undisclosed location on an unknown date. The interviewee, who has claimed shot and killed the giant, doesn't give any details on the location of the alleged incident, other than to say it was a remote location in Afghanistan in 2002. He claims he and others were sent in to look for a missing patrol when they saw a scarlet-haired giant emerge from a cave and skewer his friend, who he called Dan, with a large blade. If the Army's statement isn't sufficient, the only service member with the first name Dan or Daniel, who died in Kandahar in 2002, was killed along with 3 others in an accident involving the clearing and disposal of explosives. There are no incidents on the Department of Defense press release page in which all military casualties were listed involving a giant. Likewise, there are no reports of an entire patrol disappearing in Afghanistan. Okay guys, so here's the interview with L.A. Marzulli, or whatever his name is, and the alleged Special Forces officer that shot the giant. I may have to pause the interview now and then just so we can kind of analyze the video together so I don't get hit with a copyright, but I'll try and keep it short and sweet.
You were in Afghanistan in 2002, and you were called into a very remote section of Afghanistan because a patrol had basically gone missing.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. Well, just around nothing.
For miles.
Right.
So very remote.
Yeah, very remote. So we flew in. About 4 kilometers. We're hiking through the same area where they were supposed to make one of their checkpoints, one of their rally points. And before we'd left, there was all kinds of ambush, but that was even odd because at point of ambush, you would call for maybe close air support, something, okay? There was no calls made, just off the grid. So we're coming down a mountainside, and it was a nice path, a goat path. As we bent around this corner, you could see this opening of the cave. There's a cave as we're coming around. And then I see there's a lot of rocks, which is another oddity, and then bone matter. When I'm not close enough to identify what kind of bones, but I did see something I knew was a piece of our communications equipment. So instantly we're thinking ambush, maybe animal, it could be anything. And there was enough room in front of this cave, but it had a sheer drop-off. But there was enough room that we actually got into a decent dispersal in case of ambush.
You see something coming out of the cave, and it's moving with a speed and agility that catches you off guard.
Everybody. And he comes out. It was a man at least 12 to 15 feet in height. This is a monster. Red beard, then his hair was longish, past the shoulder, a scarlet red, and Dan runs at him and starts shooting, which broke all of us into the reality. Because it was
So
surreal.
now your training is kicking in.
Oh yeah,
Okay.
muscle memory, complete muscle memory. While Dan is moving at him, another bro of mine's laying down fire and I start firing. He skewers Dan.
Ooh, there goes Dan.
He's now got him on this pike. It went through him. And he's still got him, and he's coming after more. We all just clicked in. I don't know what it was, but I remember we're all like, shoot him in the face, shoot him in the face. And our weapons components were M4s, we had 308s, and we had Barrett 50s. This is sounding longer than it took. We're talking 30 seconds. And he's taking multiple hits.
So what do you guys think so far? He sounds pretty legit. Doesn't sound like he's lying, but it could, you never know, right? 30 seconds straight. All those guys were dumping bullets at this thing for 30 seconds. Like, that guy took a lot of fire. Like, big person.
And it's still moving.
He talked about this giant being 1,100 pounds, anywhere from 10 to 15 feet long.
I could take him.
And it was killed. It was apparently shot somewhere in a cave in Afghanistan. But before it was shot, it lunged at several of our troops, our soldiers. It may have even gorged somebody. It was just a bizarre story, and it just sounds like the Nephilim from the Bible, doesn't it?
That's why we're so fascinated by this.
Dan was dead. Okay. And why is a good man, probably one of the best men I know, now dead?
Because he got impaled with a giant pike.
Before I'd left, they were already starting what they call a 9-line, which is a medevac request. They're sending out a medevac request, then all of a sudden it's not a medevac request. All of a sudden we had a helicopter show up because, like I told you, it was a large precipice and a sheer drop. So the helicopter just came up from the drop. They had dropped netting, which is like cargo netting. It's like squares. We were told we had to bundle him up. And we get another bigger helicopter, but it's almost like a Jolly Green Giant used to look back in the day. They could get, through this area. Because the mountains, you gotta remember, Chinooks could only go in certain places because they had enough lift.
This is something that we need to know, and it points back to the biblical prophetic narrative. What are your thoughts on that?
I think, here's my personal opinion. My personal opinion is if it points that the Bible's accurate, they don't want it. If it goes against Darwinian evolution, it's not to be spoken of.
Okay, well, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. It was a special request from a subscriber. You know who you are. If you guys are new here, please consider subscribing and turning on your channel notifications so you can stay up to date on all of the latest videos. Also, don't forget to take a quick look at the links in the video description. And thank you, everyone. God bless you and your families.